Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the next installment of our E-XPO, which we've been holding every few weeks. It's a great online forum for the HOA managers and property managers and folks that work with HOAs and properties to actually get a little bit more familiar with what's going on, especially in these days where we're all fully immersed in the COVID-19 crisis. So before we get started with our this week's topic, I kind of want to go around and introduce the folks that are part of the team that put this on. And to hear from Daisy, why don't you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about what you do?
Hi, I'm Daisy Ortiz. I'm marketing manager at IQB Construction and Roofing. We do general construction, roofing, interior renovations, exterior decay repairs, and the whole roofing envelope.
Great. Brian Garcia?
I'm Brian Garcia. I'm with Restoration Management Company. We are a full-service disaster recovery company with services including water damage, fire and smoke damage, mold remediation, environmental remediation, and construction. 14 regional offices through California, Arizona, Colorado, Washington, and Texas. Thank you.
Wonderful. Annetta?
Hi, everybody. I'm Annetta. I'm a community association manager with Dancal Property Management. We are a property management company in San Francisco. I deal with mostly HOAs, but we also have also deal with rentals as well.
Great. Daniel?
Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel. Thank you for joining us. And I'm the owner of Endure Painting. We specialize in HOA and multifamily properties, and we do interior, exterior painting for several different projects. We also have a division for high-end residential painting for mostly as interior work yep, that's pretty much us.
Great, thanks, Daniel. And I'm Mark Owens. I'm with Reliant Construction Management. We are a full-service construction management firm based in San Francisco, but work all over the Bay Area, providing services from defect reconstruction oversight, scope development, defect investigation, oftentimes lawyers and law firms, catastrophic loss, water losses, building envelope repairs, capital improvements, you name it. And we've been around for 12 years. So again, I want to welcome everybody and thanks to the team. This week we're talking about, we want to discuss about the concerns, liability concerns, potential legal ramifications around COVID-19 and how we engage our vendors and work with our clients, including HOA managers and properties and owners. And we have David Mangini, who I'll introduce right now, and he's going to tell a little bit about himself, and he's with Sarman Construction. Dave?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And I'd like to thank Mark Owens for inviting me to be the guest speaker today. I've been with Sarman Construction for all of the last 6 weeks. I joined up as the firm's in-house general counsel and director of business development. For the last 20 years, I've focused on litigation of construction matters. In the last 10, I've specialized in representing HOAs in SB 800 construction defect actions. Sarman is a company I represented a long time ago before I went into plaintiff's practice, and utilized their services in supporting our destructive testing in our HOA litigation, and that hold them in the highest esteem. And I'm thrilled to have joined the team here. I'm a fourth generation San Franciscan and the proud father of a 7.5-year-old girl named Zoe, who just found out this morning that the puppy we've been waiting to be born has been born, and she will have a puppy in 8 weeks. So it's a good Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today about COVID safety in relation to since the vast majority of our participants are HOA managers. I'm going to focus on HOA properties and construction projects and other vendor entry around and into those properties. So want to talk to my primary focus is going to be on construction, and the theme I came to sort of after I put my talking points together is safety and communication are almost everything in having a successful COVID era construction project at your property, whether it's more along the lines of Brian getting into units for a stack water loss, or Daniel's crew getting in to do the inside painting on some remedial construction project that a general contractor like my company is doing. But it's also not just inside the units; it's all around the site. And it might seem a little counterintuitive, but it's actually before getting onto the site is critical as well. So let's start with the pre-project phase. Every contractor that you're having onto your property should be providing you a written project COVID protocol setup. We have those. We created those for our projects that are already in process and got them to the owner's representative if it's in an apartment complex, or the property manager if it's a condo complex. And it besides assuring, it's in large part to show them that we are complying with the law, and in fact going above and beyond that. That's the primary purpose. But behind that, it's also a communications issue. It gives the managers an opportunity to understand in great detail what exactly the construction crew will be doing when they're on site, and what safety precautions they're taking, how they will perform their work in a manner that is consistent with them not getting infected, and B, if they were infected, not transmitting it. So it's above and beyond the actual manual itself is the discussion between the contractor and the management team, so that they can ask you questions as the contractor about your COVID protocols, which necessarily is going to bring up. You'd be surprised. You have your protocol, and they bring up a somewhat obscure scenario, and you realize that we should be addressing that in our COVID protocol. So you're helping the contractor by bringing up concerns that you have, or if there are problem residents. For example, if Brian's responding to a remediation call, and we have let's say a special needs resident, or someone with a compromised health situation. That's important for Brian to know. They might not do anything different as far as physically, but it might change their approach to how they deal with the individual in question, and planning ahead to make sure that your crew members are being hypersensitive to whatever quirk or needs are presented by a particular resident. Okay.
Hey, David, really quickly, I'm going to jump in. I forgot to mention when I introduced everybody and started this whole thing, and I apologize for making this little hiccup here. If anybody that's viewing right now has any questions, by all means, feel free to actually submit them via the chat feature, and we will answer them either as we're going along, or we'll have an opportunity at the end to actually just touch base and kind of go over these questions. And so please feel free, if you have anything, to submit them. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Okay, let's keep talking about the discussion between the contractor and the manager or the management team, if there's multiple people. So I was talking about the needs of the residents inside their units. It's also important that the contractor understand the physical characteristics of the building, so that they can avoid as much as possible having to be within 6 feet of residents. So you might have a hallway that you can, the side hallway that your crews can use to access, let's say, an internal stairway, as opposed to going through the lobby, a side door, basically. Anything that you could do to work with, to educate the contractor on how it can be out of sight and out of contact with your building residents and the managers, for that matter. That is a really, really big help to the contractor, and it's a big help to the health of the project. Okay, and then communicate. You should be talking, the construction team and the manager should be talking on a regular basis just to check in. Nothing, only good can come from that. So if you're talking, for my superintendents, if they're in good contact with the management team at a large project, the manager will incidentally be thinking about, what can I tell them to maybe soothe an agitated resident, or B, to help to give them some good ideas about how they might be able to adjust, how they're again, the example, accessing the building, or how they're how they are or if there are issues with how the resident, when the residents come and go. It's good to not have people in the lobby between 8 o'clock and 9:30, when people who have to go to work are coming through. Things will come up just from communicating regularly that normally might not be conveyed, absent there being a plan for regular communication with management. Another thing that the contractor and the management team should be thinking about is, how can the manager, making sure the manager is as well informed as possible about upcoming work. So this starts pre-project, letting the manager know what the schedule is of where you're going to be on the building, so that they can post notices in the lobby. They can send out an e-blast letting them know that starting next week, the construction team will be working in. I don't know why I keep going to the lobby. We'll be working in a particular portion of the lobby, doing such and such. Next week, the crews will be working on the scaffolding outside the windows on the elevation facing over 7th Street. Anything you can tell owners and residents in advance will soothe their nerves, because right now everyone is on edge with COVID. Everyone is on edge, and anything you can do to inform them just about what's going on. It's not necessarily COVID specific. That's why you're telling them, but only good things can come from that. And you might just smoke out a problem that would have otherwise happened in the middle of construction in their area of the building. They might voice some concerns in advance that could be addressed in advance by communicating it to the construction crew. So only good things can happen by keeping people advised of what's going on and giving them updates over the course of the project. It gives them a sense of you're watching out for them. And if we do need to deal with the residents with the construction issue, the ultimate example is needing access to do the interior portion of, let's say, a window replacement. And that's a touchy subject. We haven't had issues yet with getting into units. We've had smooth sailing, but I anticipate, just like all the other contractors, will run into someone at some point. I'm saying it now, I'm knocking on wood. It could be today. It could be Monday. But that's something that's something we can all anticipate we're going to have to deal with. Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, I actually have a question. So, since you're touching the subject about working with homeowners, we try to give them we right now we're having to give the extra of information and planning and scheduling, so that everyone's kind of aware and they understand that we are taking all the precautions that are required. But what happens, like, for instance, when the homeowners are not taking those precautions, when we might be walking in the hallway or the lobby, and there is people that are not taking it as seriously as it is, and they might not wearing a mask, or they're saying hi to you and they're giving you the handshake, like, you gotta give me your handshake. And that's a difficult part. And like, for instance, my company, we work in residential homes as well, and so I've seen where all our guys are, they're wearing their masks, they're wearing gloves, they're taking all the precautions. But do we require homeowners too to like wear their masks and like maintain their distance? And if so, how can we do it without being rude? How can we do it without just sounding like you're my client, but
communicate. This is another that communicate. And if you can get, Annetta, who you've got a project going in her building, you guys have that dialogue. You start well before the project, in the context of getting her your COVID protocol, and you guys talk about that. And Annetta can send out sort of a preemptive e-blast, putting the information out there that this project is going to involve, let's say, 2 days of interior access for upwards of 4 hours each day. And for example, just what our company is doing, as far as entry goes, is they're wearing bunny suits and gloves and masks, and we're putting up containment zones, which are basically creating our own little bubble inside the unit. So we are literally, our guys are walling themselves off from the residents. So if in Annetta's first e-blast about the fact that many residents are going to have to provide access at some point during this project for 2 days, that the next sentence is here's what the contractors are doing in order to protect you and themselves. Be proactive, and take the edge off them worrying, because if you communicate early, effectively and often, you're going to increase your chances of having cooperative owners and having them realizing that this is a team sport, as far as protecting you from them and protecting them from you.
Yeah. If I might chime in there, sorry. Before obviously we do emergency services, so before we even enter a unit or a facility, we have a list of questions that we require the management and tenants to answer. And it's, have you traveled outside of the country? Have you, the basic COVID questions. But if they answer no or yes, if they answer yes to any of those, then we will say, well, we're going to have to postpone it for X amount of time until we're sure that the unit is clear, and safe for both us and for you. Now, is that something that you're seeing or you're hearing other people doing?
Yes.
Well, hey, Brian, I have a quick follow-up on that one. So if you're, and I totally agree with you, that's smart and appropriate. But if you're dealing with an emergency and a potential environmental issue, if you don't address it, how's that going to affect if someone say, for instance, answers any of those questions, yes, and or says, I just found that I'm COVID-19 positive, but you need to get in there anyway, because otherwise you're going to face environmental issues that are going to also complicate things. Like, you'll have mold growth within 72 hours or what have you. So.
Luckily, we haven't encountered that problem yet, but it'll probably be. I mean, we're doing decontaminations also, and of course, we have the containment fields that we put up regularly also. So there are workarounds, but we need to answer those questions, and we need to, have, again, clear communication. I agree with David about that. again, we haven't encountered that issue yet, but we'll see.
Well, Dave, that's maybe to you then. I mean, what would from your perspective and what you folks are doing, whether or not you may ever encounter that, what would happen? Say you are engaged in somebody's unit doing a repair as part of the larger project, you have to get in there, and someone just say, by the way, we're already in the unit and we tested positive. So
we have an extensive game plan in our COVID protocol for that.
Yep.
Let me just spend a minute talking generally about the site protocols, so that
Sure.
to deal with this issue, all of the things that are in place. We have a sign-in process, where everyone has to confirm that they have reviewed the site's the rules for the site on COVID safety. They have to sign a sign-in sheet. It's the same sign-in sheet we have at our front desk in our office here in San Francisco, and that you guys are all signing everywhere you go as well. It's and questions about temperature, and the other standard questions like Brian just mentioned, and also taking your temperature. Out at the site, they're doing that, but also for purposes of enabling us to do contact tracing. If there is an exposure incident, we also have people's contact. We also have people's phone numbers and cell phone numbers and addresses, so that a contact tracing team could immediately, if we figure out who else may have had exposure risk over the course of that day, or have been in that unit before, that we can get off to the races on the contact tracing, so we can advise people that they've been exposed and of the quarantine issues.
Okay.
And also there's a clean room that if someone does come down on the site with COVID, that they can be quarantined in until they can be safely removed from the site. And this goes for subcontractors, material suppliers, get other guests to the project. Everyone has to go through this exact same sign-in process. So, we have not had any incidents, but we are, we all have to be equipped. Assume it's inevitable, and and it shouldn't happen if we're all following the protocols, but we have to be prepared. We have to be prepared as if it's going to happen. Another thing also, as far as developing confidence with the community you're doing a project at, confidence development, and frankly, killing people's confidence in your crew isn't just when they're working on the building. It's when they're having their lunch breaks, and because it's well understood, and it's in all the orders that you can take your mask off to eat, but you also need to be socially distanced from your crewmates. So that is also part of the COVID practice. But if your guys are hanging out under a tree, catching some shade on a hot day, and they're all clustered together, and the residents see them, you're going to have a confidence disaster on your hands. And there are business ramifications of that as well. So it's not just when your crews are out actually doing the work. It's when they're on site, and guess what? It's even before they're on site. I've seen a company whose crews regularly have guys 2 and 3 to a car without masks on. That's not okay. Yeah. And when residents see those guys pulling up to a site, you think they have confidence in your crew making sure that they're protecting themselves and others? Absolutely not. So, it starts at home. Just because no one sees you, it doesn't mean you can ditch the protocols and put yourself and others at risk, as long as you're not doing it at work. It's a 24/7 thing, and we're all giant team. Humanity is on this stuff. So, it's not just when you're physically doing your work. It's all the time.
Daisy, you had something on?
Yeah, so I was gonna ask, since you were mentioning like the mask and having the guys sitting close together in their lunch breaks. So let's say like, I don't know if you might know the answer or not, but like if someone goes into the job site and they're asking for the CDC protocol, and let's say like our crew members don't have it, what's the legal issues that's gonna face? And even though we have it posted everywhere,
it's going to be more of a regulatory enforcement issue. I mean, every side office necessarily needs to have the protocols there. So I couldn't imagine that happening on one of our projects. But if you don't have that on site, you're playing with fire. As far as OSHA, as well as your municipalities and other regulatory bodies.
Yeah.
Annetta?
I just had a thought, but I lost it.
Okay.
Well,
Happy Friday.
I have a question. What do you guys know about microwave use? That I just got I didn't even know this, right? But yeah, I just
Microwaves.
cannot.
No microwaves. No water coolers either. Nothing.
Yeah.
People are going to be repetitively that people are going to be touching that others. That's a high traffic zone. That's a high traffic zone, and it makes it a heightened risk.
Yes, Annetta.
I didn't.
if you could, kind of talk a little bit more about why it's important to kind of take a proactive approach to communicating with homeowners, about, these protocols, health and safety concerns.
Well, this is we're running out of time here, but Annetta, this is a great question for me to loop back to my theme: communicate in all directions between you and you and the contractor. That communication bond is critical, so that when you're communicating in the opposite direction, which is towards the owners and residents, that you are informed and empowered to answer their questions, and also to be one answer ahead of their questions. If you're informed, there shouldn't be any surprise questions.
Okay. So basically, like, this whole thing has caused people to be like, clamor for more information, and also like this would help kind of, build trust and promote transparency.
The more you communicate with your contractor, the more of a bond you're forming with them, and the more trust you will have, and that will show in your communications regarding COVID issues with the folks in your properties.
And I guess it also makes us look good, right? Because it shows that we care about the interests of the community.
Of course it makes it look good.
Yeah.
But it's the opposite of looking bad when you don't know the answer.
So over communicate is the key, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any questions coming in?
I don't see any right now.
Okay.
But does anybody else have any kind of thoughts or questions for Dave? I mean, it was great, Dave. Thank you so much. It was such an important topic, and it's impacting all of us, and how we do all of our work.
Well, let me just say in closing, I'd like to wish all of our participants, as well as the panelists, good health, and I hope in these tough times you can find enjoyment and satisfaction in the little things, and manage to smile and laugh whenever you can. These are tough times, and I wish you all well.
Important to do right now. Thank you.
And we're all in this together. Thanks, Dave. And also, just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, feel free to, even after this, to actually go ahead and email it to us, or actually you can. There's also a crawl down the bottom there. You see, you have a chance to win raffle prize. You can actually have your name and email over to that phone number, and we can follow up with those questions, as well as we will be having a raffle for those that are participants. And then also, this is recorded, so you have a chance to view this again, as well as talk to other folks and colleagues to actually get a chance to take a look at this. So I want to thanks again, David, so much for your time and your thoughts on this important topic, and to the rest of the team for joining us. And wish you all a great day, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.